Biology chapter 17 theory video 2 genetic variation is what we are going to look at now. Now genetic variation, now you know that genetic variation takes place during cell division. Now if a normal cell in one part of the body, if that when it is dividing, if it goes if it goes through a mutation, now for example a muscle cell, then there wouldn't be any any problem with it. It is not going to be transferred to the next generation, because that has nothing to do with the cells that are responsible for the transfer of genetic materials. That is, in reproduction, the muscle cells are not involved in that. So it will continue to function as normal. But if there is a mutation that affects the control of the mitotic cell cycle, so that means if the mitosis continues to take place without any control, so it will continue to divide uncontrollably, which is going to then create a harmful cluster of cells, which would be known as a tumor, and is referred to as a cancer, because it is harmful for their body. Now, if there is a mutation in the ovaries or the testes of an animal, then what happens is it will be inherited by the offspring. That is, if that cell it divides, if that cell that was mutated, so containing that mutation, if it divides to form gametes, then the gametes will contain that mutated allele. Then if that gamete forms a zygote, and if that zygote if that zygote contains a compatible mutated allele, then that will be shown, that genotype will be shown. Then now when this gamete has taken part in the formation of a zygote, the mutated allele is also going to be there in the zygote. Now the zygote is a single cell, and it continues to divide to form the new organism, and it will contain the mutated allele. So just like the earlier situations, it will go through the usual cell division. So that will be passed on from generation to the next. That will result in different phenotypes being caused. So that is the genetic variation that is passed on from one generation to the next. But if there is now, for example, let's say in the earlier situation, we said that a plant would grow tall if the genotype is present and if the conditions are right. But if the conditions are right, that plant will not grow tall. But does that mean the offspring that would be produced by that plant, do you think that it is going to be short? It might not be short. It might be tall, because it contains the genes to be tall. But the only reason that the parent plant was short was because it did not have the environmental conditions to be tall. So in this particular situation, when the genes are transferred, and if the conditions are right for the daughter zygotes, then they will grow tall. So as you have seen, the environmental factors, then the variations that was caused by the nature, by the environment, it did not get passed on to the next generation. So that is something that you must understand and see in this genetic variation and environmental factors, how it affects. Let's write down a note for that first. Genetic variation. Mutations that occur in the body have no effect on the organism usually, because if they make up the body cells, they do not pass on the genetic variation, and as a result will not get passed on to the offspring. Will not get passed on to the offspring. However, if this affects the mitotic cycle and makes the cell to divide uncontrollably, it may result in the development of a tumor. The cells in ovaries or testes, if mutated, and if they produce gametes, if they divide to produce gametes, they will pass on the mutated allele to the zygote, and the zygote will pass on this allele to all other divided cells, because you know that the zygote divides to produce the rest of the cells. So all of them will contain this mutatic cell. That is what it means. In genetic variation, whether it is caused by reshuffling of alleles or by mutation, it can be passed on to offsprings by parents, which causes differences in phenotype. However, the phenotypes caused by environmental effects will not be passed on by the parents to the offspring. I hope you understood. If you have any difficulties, please ask.